Hey guys, how's it going? Got a quick video for you here today on the Buck 110 Folding Hunter. Now, this is not going to be a typical review video. I have an idea and I want to see if I can do this. This knife, I've seen a lot of good things about it and a lot of not so good things about it. And the not so good things about it, some of them are just people ranting off. They probably had one that was not built properly. I don't know. I can't say for them, but you know, I've seen a lot of people say, this knife sucks. It's like, well, I disagree. I think this knife is a really nice knife for the money, and I think is definitely worth it. But then I started thinking about it. I haven't carried this knife since at least 2020. You see, I've been carrying fixed blades since 2020, and I love them. I love fixed blades. I've just non-stop only carried fixed blades for the longest time. And before that, I have had this one and I think two other knives that I was carrying. And this one, the majority of the time, this one is always on my belt. And so I thought, well, before I, get to those criticisms that people have, I want to carry this for a bit. So for a week straight, this is going to be my EDC. I'm going to put the fixed blade aside for a week, which is going to be really hard, but hey, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll carry this for a week. I'll give you guys my thoughts on it, and then I'll get into the actual specs of this folding hunter. So, I'll be back in a week. Alright guys, so a week has passed. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on this knife and if it's worth carrying for EDC. But before we get into that, let's get into the specs. The knife here, overall length from back to front, is 8.5 inches. The blade length is 3 1/4. We have brass bolsters with ebony wood and 420 HC steel, at least for this knife in particular. So a lot of people have been giving a lot of arguments on this knife, saying that it is not good for EDC at all, and I disagree. I think it is actually a great knife for EDC. One thing that someone or a lot of people have said is the weight. It is way too heavy. I disagree. This knife is not that bad. It is noticeable when you first start carrying it. What you need to do is continue to carry it. I've carried this for a week, and by now I could say I don't even notice it when it's on my hip. Now, granted, when you sit down, you're gonna bump into it and you're like, oh yeah, I have a knife there. But it's not that heavy as people say, or make it sound. It's not like carrying a Scottish Claymore. This is still a pretty light knife. Another thing that people say is, well, the steel. This knife's steel is 420 HC steel. That's a very cheap. Yes and no. It is a very cheap steel, but you also got to remember the heat treat that Buck does to their steel is amazing and completely just makes this 100 times better. If you were to buy a knife from China, for example, and get one of their 420 HC steels, typically it does not have the same heat treat as this knife does, and it's typically not as good. I've had knives that have 420 HC steel from China, and they can't even do half of what this guy can do. So the heat treat is definitely a part of this in particular knife. Now, I've also talked to people who have carried, S30V and also these standard Bucks, and they said these ones they are more enjoyable for EDC. Yes, you have to sharpen them more often, but they slice better. They, tend to work a little bit better depending on the scenario. This is just what I'm getting. I don't really work with that kind of steel, but that is what I'm hearing, is that they prefer the 420 HC steel just because it's a little bit better for EDC. Again, it all depends on what you're dealing with. The other thing that people say, which I have to agree with them on this one, is you have to open it with 2 hands. No matter what, this knife has to be opened with 2 hands. And that is an absolute pain, especially when you have your hand occupied at the moment dealing with something and you need to pull your knife out. That is a pain because you have to open it with both hands. That's why I enjoy fixed blade so much, because I can just pull it out and I have my knife ready to deal with whatever task at hand needs to be done. And I've had a few times carrying this knife, not this week, but previous to this, where my hand is occupied and I need to open this and I can't. So yeah, that is one thing I completely agree with. Now, there is some things you can buy. For one, there's actually a brass thumb stud that you can put here, that you can open the knife then one-handed. The only problem I have with that is that it makes the knife, make the knife look as nice. And I love the look of the knife. It's just something that's personal to me. I'm not a fan of seeing that on there. If that works for you, there you go. Another option, which I wish was legal here, is you can get an automatic version of this knife. And basically, you know, there's a button there, you click it, and it snaps open with one hand, and you can use it one-handed. I love that option. It is not currently legal in Canada, so I cannot get it at the moment. Maybe if that were to change, I will be the first one at Bass Pro Shop to go buy one of these knives. I really do enjoy this knife. This knife is a great tool to have on the daily. Just the only reason why I don't personally carry it is because of the opening with two hands. But this would be the perfect first blade if you want to get your kid a blade, or if you're considering buying a new blade for yourself and you want to find that perfect first blade. This would be my recommendation, 110%. That is it for this video. If you have any more comments, questions, or concerns, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a good one. Like and subscribe if you can, and we'll talk to you guys in the comments.